Welcome everyone. Thank you for being here today. It's online lecture time because we have a test coming up in about a week. And one of the things that we always do is go over the fast facts together just to help get ready for the test. Remember to do the online lecture. You need to have your blue fast facts sheet with you. You should have it in your history folder already. The front side has the 5 W's and the picture of the units. This is just one good thing to study. It is not the only thing to study, but it is something that can help you out. Really good if you hand it off to someone and let them quiz you. A good way to prepare for the test. I know most of you have this, but if you missed this part, we did copy down the essential questions for the unit. Question number 1, what should people do when they are unhappy with their government? What are forms of protest? Number 2, do words have power to change the world? Do the people like Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Paine, Patrick Henry, when they were arguing for independence, did their words have power? Or did we have to get to number 3, use violence as a resource or a method to get what you want? Can words only go so far, and then eventually do we have to use violence to get what we want? Just 3 kind of questions that should show up a little bit on the test, so just make sure you have an answer to a couple of these. And now let's get to our fast facts. The American Revolution is the name of the unit. Just remember the American Revolution, or the Revolutionary War, was fought for independence. That was the whole reason we had this war, to get our independence from Great Britain. We started off things with talking about a different war, the French and Indian War. Remember, this was really a tag team battle between England and the colonies. And they were fighting against France, and most of the Native Americans had allied themselves with France. So it was really a 2 versus 2. The war was fought in the 1760s, and Great Britain and the 13 colonies win the war. So our impact of the war is Great Britain gets control of all of North America. France is kicked out and Great Britain takes over. The second part, though, is Great Britain is broke. Great Britain is not only broke, but in heavy debt. They spend all of their money fighting the war, trillions and trillions of dollars in today's money, and now they have North America, but they don't have any money. The second impact of the war is now they have a new problem, because they promised the colonists that they could have all the land if they helped them fight. 13 colonies helped Great Britain fight, but then Great Britain realizes that they can't give them the land because the Native Americans are there. So the king orders a proclamation. He basically says, we're going to create a dividing line across the top of the Appalachian Mountains in order to keep the colonists out of the Native American land. The Native Americans got all the land west of the Appalachian Mountains. The colonists got to keep all the land east of the Appalachian Mountains, and this law was called the Proclamation of 1763. After that, we got into taxes, and taxes, of course, because Great Britain needs to raise money to pay off their war debt. The biggest philosophical objection that the colonists had was no taxation without representation. You cannot tax the 13 colonies better move that over for you guys. They cannot tax the 13 colonies because they have no representation, no membership in the English government, which we call Parliament. It's not fair to ask us to pay taxes to make laws if we're not a member of the group that gets to help make the laws. The first tax taxes that they passed. The Sugar Act was a tax, not surprisingly, on sugar and predominantly molasses, considered luxury items. Also, the Stamp Act was a tax on anything made of paper. Both of these were pretty much, pretty easy to get around. You didn't have to buy sugar, you didn't have to buy paper. But the next set of taxes, the Townshend Acts, were harder to get around because basically it was a tax on everyday items, things that people had to have, like glass, lead, paper, paint, and the last one was tea. So it's a lot harder to avoid the Townshend Acts. More people had to pay taxes because you use these things in your everyday life. Of course, the colonists get so upset, they start protesting, they start petitioning, they start using civil disobedience and tarring and feather tax collectors. Great Britain repeals all of these taxes. They cancel them all out except one. They keep the Tea Act as one little tax, and if you remember, it actually made the price of tea cheaper. But they did have one tax on tea, and the colonists are using civil disobedience to protest any tax, even a small tea tax. Basically saying it doesn't matter if the tax is only a penny, we're not going to pay it. Britain, of course, basically throws up their hands after the Boston Tea Party and passes a set of laws called the Intolerable Act. And this is meant to punish the colonists for the Boston Tea Party. And not surprisingly, it especially targets and especially punishes people living in Boston, because Boston is the center of all of this unrest, all of this protest, so Boston gets hit the hardest with the Intolerable Acts. So that should be the first two lines of your fast facts. Let's go on to the next two lines. Once people start dividing up and choosing sides, patriots, of course, they favor independence. They want a new country. They want to leave Great Britain. Loyalists want to remain with Great Britain. They do not want independence. Lexington and Concord. We get into the battles now. First, fighting. It is considered the start of the war. A week later, the Battle of Bunker Hill. The Patriots fight bravely, but ultimately lose the first big battle. We get to Declaration of Independence. We know now, hopefully, that it's July 4th, 1776. And we know it's important because it is the official breakup. It is the official split with Great Britain. Thomas Jefferson does a really good job when he writes the Declaration of Independence, and he talks about inalienable rights that all people have, and the three examples he uses: life, liberty, and unfortunately he doesn't guarantee us happiness, but he guarantees us the pursuit of happiness. We get the opportunity to make ourselves happy. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As the war really gets going, we look at the two armies, the Colonial Army, the Patriot Army. Our biggest strength is our leadership with George Washington. And probably that we're fighting on our own turf. We kind of have the home field advantage. Weaknesses. Biggest one is lack of supplies. We are always short of ammunition, uniforms, sometimes even shoes, and lack of training. Especially in the beginning of the war, most of our soldiers were not really well trained. British Army, their biggest strengths are they're experienced and they're well supplied. They have the latest weapons, they have the lots of uniforms, lots of cannons, best navy, Weaknesses, they're overconfident, they're arrogant, and they're fighting far from home. They're fighting basically almost halfway across the world. We get to the end of the war. The biggest turning point is the Battle of Saratoga, which is a Patriot victory. And it convinces France to come into the war and help the Patriots fight. France gives us a lot of supplies, a lot of training, a lot of ships for our Navy, and they help us ultimately defeat Great Britain. Battle of Yorktown is the very last battle of the war. It's where Great Britain surrenders and basically gives up. Basically tells us, hey, go, if you want to be a country, go be a country. And the Treaty of Paris, our last box, is the peace treaty between the two countries, United States and Great Britain. It is where we officially, in the eyes of the world, we get recognized as our own country. So now Great Britain has officially told the world we no longer own the 13 colonies. 13 colonies are their own country, and they're going to call themselves the United States of America. And that's the Treaty of Paris in 1783. All right, one more thing before you go. You guys should have your whole thing filled in now. What I want you guys to do, just a little fun and games, I want you to put a star, 3 stars between the essential questions and the fast facts. Just go ahead and put those 3 stars there, and then when you show me your completed online lecture, I'll give you a little extra prize for having the 3 stars. Thank you guys very much, and don't forget to study for your test, which will be in about 1 week.